but I was signing at least 4-figure deals before I reached 5,000 followers.
Welcome back to the Cypress Room, where we dive deep on influencing with integrity. This is a podcast for creators, and I'm Christina Mascari.
And I'm Meggie Honeycutt.
And we are excited to bring you another interview today. This is one of my dearest friends, and I'm a big fan of her content. And today we are going to welcome Vanessa from First Gen House.
Hey friends, I've been counting down for this, so I'm stoked. I'm ready to spill all the tea and talk about all the things.
Yay! Well, we're so excited to have Vanessa with us today. And just to give you a little bit of an idea of her background, Vanessa is the creator behind First Gen House. She's a handy Latina who comes from the world of all things tech and marketing. And in 2018, her and her husband were the first generation in their families to purchase a home. And that's where the name First Gen House came from. So she, with no training, dove into the world of DIY to make over their first home. And she's had a lot of success doing that. So what she shares on her page is lots of small DIY projects, full-blown home renovations, but also real life, because that's important. She's a real one. So we just want to welcome Vanessa on the podcast today. We're so glad to have you.
I am so excited to be here. It makes such a difference to have friends in the industry that you can kind of bounce ideas with. So this feels like we're just hanging out.
I know. This is what pre-show in the green room, I told Vanessa, I'm like, every time I get to see her at an event, it's just like we're instantly drawn to each other and we just have so many things to talk about. I was like, I just want to have those same conversations here on the podcast so that everybody can have an insight to it, you know, creators who are just starting out or people who feel like they don't have community, because you're one of those people that does community so well. And I think that that has propelled like your content and just who you are and the success that you've had. So I'm so excited to have you. Like, I love having friends on the pod. So we just want you to tell everybody, like, how in the world did you start creating content?
Yeah. So I formalized the content creation side of things over maybe 6 years ago now, where I started sharing it out. But I always kind of laughed to myself because when I was a little kid, probably like 5 or 6, I had a younger sister, and we had these like these huge cameras that you would hold, and I would record myself teaching her how to brush her teeth and being like, scrub in circles in this direction. And so now I'm like, I would have been so rich if I would have just uploaded that. I don't even think YouTube was really a thing. So it really started as a kid. Like, I always loved documenting and sharing things out, and kind of the teaching aspect of having other people join you on whatever you're doing. And so now I get to do that with so many people, some of who, like, they're never going to try any of the projects I share, and others who, even the smallest, what feels insignificant to me, will make a difference in how they move about their day. And it's always satisfying kind of hearing that positive feedback on how it's helped them, you know, just make their space cuter or more functional or whatever. So it's been about 6 years that I've like intentionally been sharing it out with people. And yeah.
Are you a full-time creator now? Like, do you have a job, or is this your full-time job being a creator?
This is my full-time job now. So that is very scary, but it's also been one of the best things that I could have done for myself. And I try not to talk about it like one of those, like, you know, conventions where they're like, you too can make $1 million in 5 seconds if you just sell your soul, because it's not that. You know, there's a lot of work that goes into it. It looks different depending on what you do, what kind of content creator you are. So it's not always rainbows and butterflies. It also wasn't this like graduation. When I decided to leave my full-time job in the tech marketing world, it wasn't out of like, I'm ready for this new thing. It was unexpected, and I had to pivot in life, and I was really, really glad to have this to kind of be the new dream to focus on. But you know, it's not always rainbows and butterflies.
Right. Well, and I just can imagine, if you want to give me a little background what you did before you were a content creator, that you probably have always been like an exceller or an achiever. I don't know.
Yes.
I might be just making that up, but I interact with Vanessa a lot. We're on a committee for Haven, so I see her in action behind the scenes too. And she just is very smart, very organized, knows how to get people motivated, and knows how to work things. So have you always been successful at what you've put your hands to, what you were doing before you were a content creator?
Yeah, I try to be. I am definitely, I wish I remembered the exact term on the Strengths Finder test of, I think it is achiever. I
Yeah.
always want to be the best at what I do, and I know that I'm going to fall short, so that's why I have to aim to, do the best. Um, I'm also it's in my name, first gen, like I'm a first generation, first daughter in our immediate family. So I think culturally there is this aspect of you're in charge, you're going to have to figure it out on your own. You kind of just put your blinders on and focus on the end goal. And I think that's translated to everything else I've done in my career in marketing. And again, sometimes I just laugh at myself because I'm like, you don't need to stress yourself out so much. But I remember when I started, right when I graduated college, I thought to myself, you have to learn everything there is about this field, this platform, what is possible in the world of all things marketing and automation, so that you hold as much, you hold all the information that someone else may not be able to have. And it's a lot of pressure to put on yourself to know all the things. But I also did want to be the best resource to whatever company I worked at. And it ended up being the case. I actually ended up working within that actual software, because I knew so much, because I collected so much information. So I like to think of myself as a collector of information in whatever I'm doing, so that when that, like, Who Wants to Be a Millionaire moment comes, when it's content or when it's building, I can draw from the bank of information that I have.
Yeah, I just love that because I don't think it's something that people think a lot about. Like, there is a verse that I love that talks about, like, because I've trusted you with little and you've taken care of that, I know I can trust you with bigger things. And I think people sometimes just hate their work so much, or hate their job, or hate having a
Yeah.
boss, that they don't do their job with excellence. And how can you run your own business and do your own thing? It is possible, but like having that attitude of excellence for something that's not even yours just does so much for you when you move into having something that you own,
Mhm.
because you already have that discipline of excellence for something that wasn't even yours. So how much better are you going to treat something that is yours? So I just
Yeah.
love like hearing that story. And it's definitely something that comes across like in your content and in like just knowing you as a friend and knowing you personally. So I just love that you were able to share that with us.
I know. And
Oh,
as an oldest daughter, I feel like I can relate to everything you're saying
I'm
there
not, I'm a
about
baby.
yes.
the
Of
achiever
course you are.
mindset. So what I want to know is like that achiever mindset, like everything you're saying, when you started as a content creator and even in the world of DIY, how did that mindset translate to how you approached First Gen House starting doing DIYs? Because I assume, was this your first time even doing DIY type hands-on projects? Like, how did
Yeah.
you translate that achiever mindset to doing something completely new in a new field?
Yeah. So sometimes I think part of it is, again, kind of my personality and approaching things, but I think the internet will also, wherever there's a gap between what you're able to do, the internet will humble you and teach you that you need to cover your bases on different
Yes.
things. So when I started, this is all new to me, right? So I had, yeah, everyone builds like a jewelry holder at some point in the Pinterest days and that kind of thing. But when I really started building out my home and building projects that were going to be in my home, I realized that the same way that I approached work, right? I come with a background in strategy, and I always want to be, like I said, cover all my bases and be strategic with what I move and not exhaust myself. It was very much applicable to content creation. So, same thing. I had to be strategic with how I filmed things and how I shared them out. And I had to understand that, and this is my fascination with all things marketing and PR, the person on the other side of the phone is not seeing and smelling and experiencing what I am. And so I wanted to make sure that I was saying the right words, that I was communicating the right message, so that they felt that they were right there in the room working on this stuff with me, not for the purpose of duplicating it in their home, but for the purpose of having someone to sit with, right? That was
Yeah.
kind of
Yeah.
why I started sharing it, was just because I had my husband to talk about it with, but no one else physically with me. And so that's kind of why I put it out there. But any area that I haven't perfected, the internet will let me know. And sometimes you just kind of, shrug it off and forget about it. But I would share something, and if it wasn't complete, I realized that one, I needed it to be complete for myself. I needed my own home to have good furniture built, not just stuff that looks good on the internet, because then I couldn't actually sit on this chair that wasn't structurally sound. And if I ever cut corners, like I said, people on the internet will call you out on it. So I try to approach my content strategically and then also very honestly, and making sure that I'm never presenting something that someone can't walk into my house and actually experience. Like it's not a facade. It's really all entirely Vanessa, as if you met me in person.
Yeah.
Wow, that's
Mhm.
cool. I feel like we're speaking the same language here because
Yes.
I am a strategic thinker, a systems, a processes person. And this
Mhm.
one right here is the creative, like just much more fluid and flexible.
Yeah.
So you're
And you
speaking my
need
language,
both.
Vanessa. Yes,
Yeah.
absolutely. And both types can be successful
Yeah.
in this. And that's what I love
100%.
about us doing these interviews is we've gotten to talk to so many different types of people. Everyone's successful in their own right and everyone doing it and approaching it in a different way, which is
Yeah.
what is so cool about it.
And say that's the thing I think people forget is we are not perfect humans. We don't just fall
Right.
under one
Mhm.
box. So sometimes when we see other people have some formula online, people will follow
Mhm.
that and think they're going to get the same result. And it's like, no, you have to consider who you are, how much of your brain
Right.
excels when you're being creative versus not. You can't just copy and paste someone else's equation and expect to get the same result.
Right.
Yeah.
I
That's
know.
such
I
good
think so
advice.
many people do that. They see what someone's doing. They're like, well, I want to emulate what they're doing and I'm going to copy A, B, and C and D and do it. And I'm the person that's like, no, this is just supposed to be encouragement to you to be like,
Yes.
oh, I can do this too. And yes, you can take pieces of what they're doing, but you can't copy and paste. If you could
Mhm.
copy and paste, all of us would be influencers and we would all be
Yes.
getting millions of views. Like you just have to take what works for you and try to figure it out and what you want to tackle and what you don't want to tackle. And yeah. So, I mean, all those courses and things are helpful, but I like to just be the voice of reason that comes in that has, like you, 5 or 6 years of experience and be like, hey guys, like the reason this person is so successful in this area is like, watch their content. It's really good.
You
Like
have
it's not
to.
because, yeah.
Yeah,
So,
you
and you
have
can
to,
take,
because if not, everyone else, I mean, the internet will tell you about all of it and it's good. But I think that you also have, I'm just gonna be I hate to call it like the devil's advocate, but I'm gonna say this just so that
yes.
you know that there's something else for you to consider and you can choose to do what you want with it. But at least I know that I told you that there's more to it than just this shiny thing you see online.
Right.
Yeah.
And like I was like in a situation like that and I was like, I don't want to be a Debbie Downer. Like please hear my heart. I'm not saying this is not possible for you, but I also want to give you a dose of reality from someone
Yes.
who has done all of this and it didn't work for me. So just don't like see what works for you and that's okay, but don't think like this is my golden ticket and it's going to be so easy
Yeah.
because it's just not.
Yeah. Well, my experience with Vanessa is she was my mentor at Haven last year. And the thing that really struck me about you is that, first of all, you are such an encourager, but also you're like a connector of people and you were connecting people. Oh, you know how to do this. Well, she knows how to do this. Let's connect these people. Let's figure out, oh, you need help in this area. Let me get you with somebody who can help you there. And you really didn't gatekeep and you were really kind of figuring out how you could lift everyone up wherever they were at and get them the resources that they need. So tell us a little bit about that. I know you play a big role at Haven every year, but I mean, that's a very selfless thing to do that doesn't necessarily advance your personal business in any way, but I know I got the sense that it was very important to you. So can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, thank you for saying that. That means a lot. It means a lot to me to be able to connect people. I like being, again, it's kind of like older sister mentality. I like to be able to put people where they feel comfortable. Just because, we've all experienced being that one person who's like off to the side of the room. And sometimes we need others to invite us in. Even as a full-blown extrovert, I have my moments of needing someone to kind of ease me into the situation. And I think that we have enough, as women especially, we have enough experiences with people letting us know we're not good enough, or we need to do more, or we just don't, or we just tell ourselves a different story that we don't fit in, or whatever it might be. And so if this can be one less place where we experience that, that means a lot to me. And to be honest, it's not always easy. Sometimes you do think like, "Ugh, I'm giving away some top secret, and people are gonna take it, and they're
making millions of
I
dollars.
know. And then I think to myself, like, well, I would be making millions of dollars if that were the case, and we're not there, so it's fine. It's okay for me to kind of share the information. But also, it's like I said, no one can duplicate your equation, right? Like, no one is going to go into the world and move like I move. They're going to probably do a great job doing their own thing, but me sharing the information is not going to turn them into me. And so I have to just let go of it quickly and kind of hope for the good karma and go from there. But I really enjoy conferences like Haven, because I think that the more we can walk away feeling like we have, I mean, this relationship stemmed from that, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So if we can walk away to our own homes hundreds of miles away and still feel like we have other people, and if I can be that person for someone, sign me up. Like, I will be your designated friend for the weekend or for however long, just because I love to talk, and I'm an extrovert, and I love people.
Well, I love to. I'm just thinking about the first time I met you at Haven, because I knew you were teaching a class, and I had seen you like around Monica and House of Esperanza, which I want to talk about that, so don't let me forget about that. But I remember just going up to you and being like, "Hey, I like found you through Monica, and like I'm so excited that you're teaching here, and it's so nice to meet you." And it was totally uncomfortable. I did not know you. I had never met you in person, but like, I'm just going to do this. I'm going to go out here and I'm an introvert, so it is hard for me to do those things. And just thinking about how many times I've seen you since then, like there is just something about connecting with people in person and being able to say to their face, "Man, I'm really encouraged by your content, and thank you for sharing this." And like, "How are you doing this? Oh my gosh, this just happened to me. What happened to you?" And it not just being about going to a conference to be like, "How can I make $1,000 on my content? How can I get big brand partnerships?" Like, the community is just important as the classes. And I think sometimes people put so much weight on the class and the value on the class, they don't think about the value of gathering in person with people, especially people who've been doing it for a while. They're like, "Oh, well, I've been to Haven before, so I'm not going to go this year. Like, I already learned enough that I need to learn. I don't like the brands that are going to be there." But the community aspect is so important. And if I didn't have the community that I have and the touch points that I have, it's a huge part of my business.
Yes.
And I don't know, like, how do you feel about that community aspect?
1,000% agree. I feel like you will learn a lot in any class that you invest in. You'll learn, okay, maybe not every class, but you will learn a lot. There are some classes I would not invest in, but you will learn a lot at events like Haven and conferences like that. But there is something about the like fireside chat feel where that's where you learn the stuff that people cannot teach you in a like structured setting. That's where you talk to people and you learn how they negotiate. You learn how the random little edit that they do that changes the game for them. It's all in that friendship conversation that happens when you get home, or when you're at the bar, or when you're at the restaurant, or whatever it might be. Yeah. I completely agree. I mean, so many people go to conferences for their work, they go to conferences for their church, like all of it, school, all of these really, really great settings. And this is one area where we forget that if we want to work like a business, there is value in investing in that time with friends. And it's not affordable for everyone. It's not doable for everyone. So I think you have to kind of find it where you can, whether it's jumping on and reaching out to people in DMs, or participating when they do lives, jumping in on that chat to meet other people who are doing what you do. I have walked in and met friends, and then there are people who have become family, like Monica, who now, I mean, I couldn't tell you the last time we talked about anything content specific, because we're talking about raising babies and getting sick and home remedies. And that's really where the winning is in the whole world of the internet.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Absolutely. I love that. Well, let's talk about House of Esperanza, because I think that is such a unique example of community. And we have seen so many
Mhm.
amazing creators
Come out of that
come
space.
out
Yeah.
of that space. I mean, specifically, we've spoken with Kyle Ortiz,
Did you know Kyle is her cousin?
No!
Yes,
They're
we
like
have.
real cousins. I thought they were
we-
just like so close as friends.
Oh
No,
my
they're real
gosh.
cousins.
That is
I'm telling
so
you,
fun.
some people are legit family, but we're a tight knit group. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes. And tell
Yes,
us a
we.
little bit about how your involvement in that and what it has meant to the success of your business and just life in general,
Yeah.
because it does go beyond business to people being
Community,
like family.
friendships. Yeah,
Yeah.
family.
100%. Yeah, I love the School of Esperanza. So just a quick background on it. Monica Chavez launched the School of Esperanza, and it was intended to be a space to educate other creators, to share it in that transparency, right? To share all the ins and outs of the industry so that they didn't feel that they had to scale mountains just to get information that was very obviously being gatekept in the industry. And I was really, I mean, I had connected with Monica, I think right before she launched the school, and become a friend at that point. My background in marketing and in content strategy, I was itching to share that out with people just because I was seeing how it was helping my own business. But the really interesting thing, and I actually just talked to her about this a few weeks ago, is as someone who is a Latina in this space that is very hands-on, DIY, I realized that when I would look around or when I would look at a magazine, it wasn't an instinct to be able to list people who I felt reflected in, not just from a skill level, but all like walks of life, physically. There just was not, there was not a person on HGTV that I could just go, oh, that's an example of where I could end up. And from the cultural like issues on diversity and inclusion point, that is very obvious. It's not news to anyone. But all that technical talk aside, just the feeling that you get when you realize like, if no one has made it that far, can I actually make it that far? Like you just end up thinking that. And unfortunately, sometimes our brains are not very kind. And so the answer is, yeah, you probably won't. If no one else has done it, then I don't know why you would be any different. So having Monica kind of be a trailblazer in that space and create a space for others to see people like them doing well, not having crazy numbers, but doing well and feeling successful, was so impactful for me. It made such a difference to know that I had a resource of a person who understood what it was like to move through this industry in my shoes. It made a huge difference. And now, while the school is open to anyone, it's not specifically focused on diversity or inclusion, we have built this community of others understanding that experience when they come into the industry. And so you either choose to be someone who is transparent and helpful and a mentor and just a resource, or you choose to be someone who is there to talk about more diversity and inclusion issues. There's just a place for everyone. And as someone who has that background in marketing, I have gotten to be one of her go-tos when it comes to planning out and to hearing what the community needs and responding. And I'm really grateful to be a friend and a contributor in that space.
Wow, that's amazing. I just, as you're talking, I think about that multiplication factor of what the House of Esperanza and you all, the kind of the founding members, just to think of how that's been multiplied through the people who started there, and then they go out and share
Yeah.
the tools with others. And then it's just the ripple effect. I think you guys will probably never even be fully aware of how that's impacted the community of content creators out there.
Yeah.
So that's really powerful to think about.
Yeah.
I love that.
Thank you. And that you're exactly right. I think that we will, sometimes you have to, just put the information out there, and you're right. You're never going to see where it goes. But I mean, at the end of the day, like this is people's careers. Like this can put food on someone's table.
Yeah.
And I think that's something for us to really like let that be a really deep thing, that if we can help someone find a way to provide for their family and also maintain their mental health and also just like explore creativity, which we don't do enough as adults, then we should do that. That, you know, we should share all that we can about it. And the school is a perfect place for that.
Yeah. And the people that I know directly from School of Esperanza are you and Monica and Kyle. I think that I've had like deep conversations with. I've met everybody I've met is just so lovely. And I'm always going around at Haven being like, you need community, you need to join the School of Esperanza.
Yes.
Like I'm out here like promoting for her.
Yeah.
But you guys just like you're not chasing dollars and you're chasing fulfillment. You're chasing being able to encourage people and tell people their value and see diversity and inclusion in these spaces where you haven't seen yourself represented. And you can just tell that there's a security in all three of you that is just really beautiful, because it's easy to get caught up in like hearing all these influencers and hearing these content creators get these like $50,000 deals. And it's like, you think that is the goal, but we have been preaching this for a while. Like that stuff feels really good in the moment. I'm not going to lie. Like getting a 5-figure deal on one piece of content feels amazing, but it does not last very long. And you're like, okay, now I need to do the next thing. Now I need to do the next thing. And I just think that the school and the community that it creates keeps you very grounded and keeps you just like grounded in why are you doing this and what is your goal. And like sometimes it is just enough to be able to provide for your family and have your own business and have this legacy. It doesn't have to be $1 million business to be fulfilling and to feel secure. And so I just love, it just comes across in what you're doing. So I just know that there's so much value in it and that it's real and that it's an authentic. It's not like a get rich quick scheme. There's so much stuff going on that's like, join my thing and I'll teach you how to be a 6-figure creator. And it's just like, Monica never markets that way. I've never seen you market that way. And you guys walk out and live like what you're preaching. And so just as an outsider, I wanted to let you guys know that for sure.
Well, and the funny thing is you can chase the money all day long, but you also can understand that because of who I am, who Kyle is, who Monica is, as we can chase it all day long, but it doesn't mean that we don't have odds that are not in our favor, like anyone, right? Depending on whatever walk of life you're coming from. So I'm not going to keep chasing it if I know that I have this odd that's not in my favor, when I could just be focusing on making sure that I understand how to run a business properly. And, so that when the success comes, because it will, if you are consistent, that what to do with it. And I think that's the funny thing is people will say, you can make so much money. And I always like to say like, yeah, you can make a ton of money doing this. Also, you can end up in an argument with your spouse because your house is a mess and you don't know how to balance content and picking up the kids and blah, blah, blah. Right. Or
I feel
also
personally attacked right now.
Yes. I'm like, so it's like the balancing your family in the middle of it all.
Yeah.
Also, like, I couldn't tell you what my actual sleep schedule is. Also, even after I've signed a 5-figure deal, then I go literally the next day right back to, am I even good enough for this? So if we're going to paint a picture of what content creation is, like, let's not forget all those little moments that aren't so cute to talk about, because that's what'll get you. Forget the not making the money is when you realize that your communication with your partner or your friends has changed. That's what's going to kill your spirit. And so you want to nourish all those things as you decide to kind of take on the monster of all things content creator.
Well, and that's kind of the full circle moment and the importance of community, because that's why you have the community there, is so that in those valley moments, in those tough moments, you have people who can say, no, I've been there, I understand, who can relate and encourage you. And the thing that really struck me about House of Esperanza is telling people that they're valuable, they're worth it, they're worthy.
Yeah.
What they create has value in the marketplace and it's worth making money on. So I just think it's like all of it together like tells us like this is why you want to invest in community as a content creator, because it's so much more than just making money. It's the intangible things to me that become the most valuable about having that community around you. So I love that.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
I know I wanted to touch on this a little bit because I mostly follow you on Instagram and your content there, but I know you've taught classes on, how to really juice your content and how to take a project and make it into multiple things. Where do you
Mhm.
focus most of your time? Where can people find you besides Instagram? And kind of what is your workflow right now with where everything's going out?
Yeah, so I would say Instagram is kind of where I put my effort into to begin with. So that's kind of the starting point as far as like if anyone ever wants to talk to a friend, you will definitely find me there and we can chat there. But I try to put my content across all platforms. The one, and I know Christina, I've been taking notes. The one that I'm looking to be more focused on is YouTube because that's just one that I use every day for a million reasons, and I'm not sure why it's been so intimidating to be more sustainable on that platform. But as far as what I share, so if you have followed me for probably more than a year and a half at this point, then you might remember that there was a time where I had kind of a split thing going on where I would share all of my content, all of my DIYs and projects. And then I would kind of give the content creator side of things where I would say, here's what I'm doing as a content creator for anyone who's trying to figure out why I share these projects or how I do it behind the scenes and they think they might want to do it. Here's what you should know, and I kind of put on my consultant hat to share out strategies for content organization and all that kind of stuff. So I took a pause on that just because again my job changed. This became my full-time job and I just wanted to switch it up a little bit. But I am actually going to be sharing that out a little bit more. So you'll see that split of we see you working on the project. Now tell us how this all works behind the scenes. And I do that because again, I realize I've spent time in the corporate and the tech world consulting with other clients on how they should do strategy. And I want to make that expertise accessible to other people. I don't want them to think that they have to hire me as some like fancy, marketing pro. I want them to know that there is enough information out there that they can kind of do it on their own if they so choose. And then if they feel like they need more help, then they can always consult with me. And you'll see kind of that consulting page go live. Um, but I don't want it to be something where you have to pay hundreds of dollars to get information that you can find online. There's so many courses that are like, you end up taking them and then you're like, okay, I knew this part. I thought you were going to tell me something groundbreaking. I never, ever want one of my clients to go, oh, I could have Googled that. Like, we don't want that
Yeah.
experience. So, sometime down the road, you'll see that kind of start going live.
Very
Mhm.
cool. Do you have a blog or anything else? Or just like a
Yeah.
website? Okay.
Yes. So firstgenhouse.com is where I have all of my more elaborate. I'm also not a huge writer when it comes to like making things really detailed. I want it to just be straightforward, the same way that I like to look at information. So on my blog, I will capture a lot of my projects and just kind of recaps on everything. So if anyone ever needs more information on what I'm working on, they can usually find it there.
Okay, cool. I love that you're
Mhm.
talking about how you are creating content, but you're also talking about why I create the content and how I create the content, because I feel
Mhm.
like that's been a thing that's been happening over me for the past 2 years is just like, I feel like I show up and yes, I am still a furniture flipper. And yes, I still want to teach you how to do DIYs, but there is a huge part of my life that I'm not showing you guys. So it started feeling like inauthentic.
Yeah.
And it all just like changed for me last year when I made this video where and I put it on YouTube. It was my most successful YouTube video last year. It was just me with this microphone being like, hey guys, I'm a furniture flipper and I no longer sell my furniture. Let's talk about why. And so I went through
Yeah.
the whole history of how I started a YouTube channel, why I even started flipping furniture. It was never to make money flipping the furniture. It was because I was a stay-at-home mom and I was watching Housewives too much when my husband was out of town and I needed to like make things over for my house. So
Yeah.
I just walked them through the whole story of how I even started using my hands, why I decided to put it up on the internet. I still don't really know why I decided to put it up on the internet. And so I'm just showing up there more. I'm like, hey,
Mhm.
I got to create this video for YouTube. Like, this is this deal that I had. Hey, I'm going to this Better Homes and Garden event, and this is why I'm here. And here's all these other creators that I'm meeting. And like, so I just got to a point where I'm like, this has to break because I feel like I'm showing up and I'm like a personality and I'm not. I'm a person.
Yeah.
And this is my business and I get to run it the way that I want to. So I'm going to show up and be like, I am doing this because I make money. Like,
Yes.
I'm not just flipping furniture out of my garage and selling it for like $500 and that's how I'm making a living. Like, that's not
Yeah.
happening. and just kind of fully pulled that curtain back. And a lot of people on YouTube are still getting used to that. I think they don't really like it, but that's okay. Like, I'm willing to lose followers over there if they don't want to follow me anymore. That's okay. And not like in a bitter way. It's just like, people move on. Like, I liked 90210 for a long time, but when they all graduated college, I'm like, I'm out on this show. Like, I'm done. I don't care about them being in the business world, and it is totally, I don't like it anymore. And so that's okay. Like, that's why shows only last for so many seasons. So I think, like, when you're in content creation, I'm coming up on my 5th year full time. You've been, doing this for a while too. Do you feel like things have changed, like, from year to year? Do you feel like, yes, some stuff really, really works and I would love to just keep doing it, but it was killing my soul? And I was like, we just have to move into this different space where I am a creator and I'm a furniture flipper and I'm a DIYer and I'm just going to show you all the things. Yeah. Where do you feel like you're at in that continuum?
So I totally agree with you. I think that when the industry, which is still very new, when all things content creation and monetizing from this really started, it was very hush hush. People didn't realize, the audience, the consumers did not realize that things were affiliate links. I mean, those programs are also very new. They didn't realize that things were sponsored and people didn't have to disclose. And it just kind of was like, how is this person making all this money? Like, you just don't know. Now people know enough. They know that there are ads, like, they know enough. And so we do need to be more transparent. I think I can't help but to then have, like, my strategic hat on, right?
Okay,
sometimes it makes sense to go, I am solely focused on putting this content out there. You may not be good at it. You may not be good at showing the behind the scenes. You may not be a good content creation content. And so it's fine to just focus on what's in front, because that is who your ideal audience is, right? And I say that's fine. If your ideal audience is only the people who just want to watch you flip furniture, then you don't ever have to do anything else other than that thing. But when you feel that calling of just wanting to share a little bit more of yourself, it usually comes from a place of having interactions with other people where you realize that something outside of content creation or something outside of furniture flipping that you shared made a difference. Then you think to yourself, like, this message needs to get out. The same way that sometimes people feel that about, a Bible verse that they're reading, or, again, some good information. You realize that you're holding on to something that may be impactful for other people. And I think we should lean into sharing those things. My audience is very split. I share with people everything that I'm doing in my home. And then I realized that a lot of people were not hanging out with me because they want to hang the exact same curtains as I do. But because I was sharing more vulnerable parts of myself, just because I couldn't help but to do it, I had just become a person in their life. And so I thought, I do want to open up more. I want to share more of, not my marriage, but I do want people to see that I had a fun day out with my husband, and, I'm not becoming a couples content. It's not doing any of that. I just want you to see that the reason that I'm late to a thing is because I overslept, or the reason I am having so much fun is because I had such a hard time in life, or, you know what I mean? Like, you can't understand why someone's operating some way unless you have more context. And I like providing the context of my life. It's sometimes you regret it and you're like, never mind, I'm not going to talk about that thing ever again. Too vulnerable. But usually what will happen is you connect with people over it, and it's worth it. Like, it's just, I don't know. I think it's fun. I also can't afford to not, I am very, like, my toes in the ground, committed to making sure that how I show up on the internet reduces the lack of representation. And so I cannot afford to have other Latinas in this space not have someone to look to, or not have someone that they can reference. And so that pushes me to say, I do need to share the ins, the hards, the not so funs of this job, because I can't afford to have other Latinas not have someone that they can look to. It's just, if I want all the things that I believe in as far as representation to happen, unfortunately, you have to sit at the table sometimes, even when the table is, like, wobbly and not fun. So for you, whether it's as a mom or as a woman who's like, can we stop pretending that all we do is be moms? You know what I mean? Like, if that's a thing that matters to you, you have to be so committed to that you're willing to put a little bit more out there.
Yeah, I love that. I mean, it's a great point, because I could just keep doing the one thing, the niche thing, And I
Yeah.
was just done with it. And it does work, and it worked for a long time, but I knew for me and for my mental health and for the joy of just enjoying what I do, like, why own a business if you're not enjoying it? That's just where I was
Exactly.
at. And it was the straw that broke the camel's back. That's like, okay, we're going to do this. And I might completely fail, but maybe I can just go back to flipping furniture if it completely fails. But I love hearing the strategy behind it, and like I'm a very emotional person. I'm a very I love to go deep with people. I want to know all the stuff, but you're right.
Yeah.
Like, not everybody wants to know that stuff. And so
Yeah.
if you're just a person that's like, I just want this to be business, I don't want people to know my personal life, and this is what I'm going to do. Yeah, that's totally fine. If that
Yeah.
works for you. So
And
I
you
love that.
also I think part of it is, which we don't label, but I think there's a little bit of fear in it too, is that it is comfortable to just do the thing you're doing. And you're like, well, I don't want to talk about the clothes I wear because I'm not going to be a fashionista. It's like, no one's looking for a fashionista. I take your recommendations on clothes all the time just because I'm like, hey, you made it easy for me, right? So sometimes it's a little bit of fear in thinking like, oh, well, if I'm not going to do that 1,000,000%, then I'm not going to do it at all. It's like, no, you're not. You don't need to become a fashion expert to tell people about your experience shopping and the jeans, and they're so hard to find, So sometimes it's just about trying it. If it doesn't work, yeah, you go back to whatever did work.
Yeah.
Yeah. This perspective is just, I just love it that you seem to have a very strategic, analytical mind. And I love your thought process behind sharing and being vulnerable in your space. And, one thing that really struck me is when it was a TikTok of yours, and you were talking about as you're processing grief about losing your dad. And I also lost my dad 2 years ago. And it just really struck me. You were talking about how grief comes up in unexpected places, and I don't know, I could relate. It was a connection point for me, but I would love to hear how you decided. I mean, that's really
personal,
vulnerable.
yeah.
Like, not just sharing a husband or kids or what you're wearing or, a fun date. How did you make the decision to go like that deep? And did you regret it? Are you glad that you shared your
Yeah.
process of grief?
Yeah. Yeah. It was definitely not, I'm not even going to say it was hard because it wasn't, I felt like I really didn't have an option. And it was kind of funny because, so the reason I talked about it is because there are certain things that I keep very close to the heart. Family member, there's specific things I'm never going to talk about online, or I'm never going to show online just because it feels really precious. And my family and my family history is often one of those things. But when my dad passed away, we were in the middle of a pandemic, and obviously my world was shattered. I mean, all in that moment, it felt like everything existed in the moment of losing my dad. And the next few days that followed, I was managing all of that. There's so much paperwork, and there's just so many things that people don't talk about when it comes to grief, right? So I was dealing with all of that. And then I walked into my sunroom, which was kind of one of the biggest first projects that really took off online. It was what really got people to understand who I was and that I loved plants and my approach to design. I walk into the sunroom where I probably had over 100 plants, and they were all dead. And it was because in the busyness of dealing with the technical aspect of death, I had forgotten to turn on the room heater in the sunroom. We were in the middle of winter. So all of my plants that I had, everything I had built my platform on, froze to death. And I just walked in there, and it was like, not only has my world been shattered, but the world that people see, how am I going to wake up on Monday and pretend that this is like, my plants are literally dead. My money shot is gone. And so I had to talk about it. And obviously, I talked about my dad passing away. And then I said, I have to laugh at this moment in life that also all of my plants are dead. So it's like the world is telling me I'm going to have to start new. And what I didn't expect to happen is people were like, I'd love to email you a gift card or whatever. They were so sweet, right? And they could find my email easily. And I had people who started gifting me plants. And it was like they would send me a gift card, like an Amazon gift card for plants. They're like, please, let us help us help you kind of thing. And I was so broken that at that point I was like, I if you want to send me a plant, that is the best thing you could do for me right now. And so friends, people who I'd met on the internet who were not content creators, friends, just anyone you can think of, started sending me these plants and helping me rebuild, honestly, not just the room, but like my heart, you know? And this is what was really crazy to me is I had lost my mom when I was very young. And so I thought, oh, I'm an expert in losing a parent. Like if I ever lost another parent, I'm going to be fine. And I was completely wrong. And I wanted to share that with other people. I wanted to let other people know that the project I was working on had nothing to do with tiling. It had to do with keeping myself busy enough to not fall apart in the middle of this, right? In the middle of being away from your family and quarantined and all of that. And it was a coping mechanism, honestly. And for some people that might not be healthy, but for me it was exactly what I needed in keeping my hands busy. Um I will say sometimes it can be difficult because, like I said, grief kind of comes and goes. And so sometimes I'll talk
Mhm.
about whatever I might be experiencing. There's always a new milestone in life. When my nephew was born, I couldn't help but to think about what my parents would think, right? When these special moments happen for my husband and I can't help but to you look to your parents to be like, hey, good job, right? And it's very hard not having that. But sometimes when you share that online, realistically, there are some people who will empathize with you and will share their story. And sometimes you find out that you're not ready to process that story. So
Yeah.
oftentimes
Mhm.
I'm in a pretty good spot for others to share and for me to say, like, hey, you're not alone. We're in this together. But there is a limit to how much information I can take in, right? There's sometimes I cannot process other people's trauma and I have to have a response for that and know that it's not about them. It's not about me. We're just not in a synced up space to talk about certain things. So I don't necessarily regret it. I will always keep talking about it just because I am very much, it makes up who I am. I wake up on any given day and I can't help but to, go through the loss all over again. And I'm glad that other people, I had someone actually at Haven come up to me and say, like, hey, I also lost both my parents and I have literally no one my age to talk about this stuff with. And so again, that matters to me. It matters to me that they feel they have someone they can relate to, even if it has nothing to do with the projects. Um, and I will say, I had an interview about something and I walked out of the interview and I felt really incomplete about it. Like I just felt like even though I had talked about all my projects, it didn't really feel authentic. And as I sat down and I like talked about it out loud with my husband and I was my friends, and I was like, why does this feel so icky? It was supposed to be such a great opportunity. And I realized that it's when they asked me like, where did this all begin, Vanessa? How did you get into projects? I focused on, well, I just really wanted a beautiful home that I loved. And I completely went over the fact that like I have experienced insecure like homelessness and I have experienced food insecurity and I have
Mm.
experienced grief and trauma and it was like that's where the juice is. That's what makes my everyday so different is that this feels really good because I have experienced the depths of the opposite experience and I need to remember to talk about that because if not, my story is very average and none of us are average. So if I don't give some acknowledgement to how hard things have been to the grief, then people won't understand why I do a dance when I hang up a mirror, right? Because sometimes just hanging up a mirror or hanging up a towel hook is a huge deal when someone's going through a really, really tough time. So it's almost like you kind of, again, giving context to people. This is a big
Yeah.
deal because I've had nothing. And so I'm really grateful that other people are willing to share those stories with me and that it's not easy to be vulnerable. So I'm grateful that my vulnerability leads to a cycle of more vulnerability for other people.
Yeah, it
Wow.
is just so beautiful and it is hard. So I do like applaud you because you could just go into all those interviews and not share that stuff, but it does just help me understand you that much more. And like I feel the passion behind what you do, but actually knowing where it comes from is really beautiful. So keep sharing that story. It's
Well,
moving. I'm a little verklempt. You're gonna have to take
No, what
no.
I mean, I'm just sitting here thinking, we talk a lot on this podcast about the importance of like testimony. And basically that's just saying, here's what I've walked through and here's what's possible. Like you don't have to stay in that place. And that is powerful because for somebody else who has experienced homelessness, who has experienced the death of a family member and is stuck in grief and stuck, feeling so stuck, like they have no options, to look at somebody and maybe you're representing, they've never seen another Latina who's conquered these things and come out the other side healthy and happy and whole and sharing a story and saying you can do it too. That is powerful. And, back to, I mean, I just can't get over that ripple effect, that multiplication factor of the people that are coming up, watching you, blazing their own trail, and then doing the same thing out in the world. And you might never know that, but I'm sure that it's happening because that's the power of testimony. That is the power of sharing those things and saying, like, yes, I've been through some really hard stuff. Life has not been kind in some ways to me, but like, here's what's possible. Here's what you can do, what you can accomplish. And maybe it won't look the same, but it's possible. And I think that's like the most powerful thing you can do. And the heart of why we started the Cypress Room, because when you can use your influence and your platform to make a change, a positive change in the world, like that is the best thing ever. That's redeeming all of the icky, yucky stuff that happens in this space when people say, oh no, it starts here with me. I'm not going to complain about all of the nastiness out there. I'm going to say it starts here with me, with change. I'm going to share all the positive things, the things that I've walked through, and hope that it blesses somebody else. And then they're able to take that and do the same for themselves. So I love that.
That's exactly right. You don't realize what impact it will have. And sometimes you have to do it assuming it may not have any impact, but I do think, and that's why a few months ago, actually in December, I was wrapping Christmas presents and I was going to record something just like, I'm wrapping Christmas presents. And I broke down, not out of grief, but out of joy of being like, oh my God, it was like full circle. A few years ago, people would have caught me here on Christmas Day or the night before Christmas, an absolute mess over this loss. And this joy that I never thought I would experience, I am currently in that moment. And I wanted to share that too. I wanted to be like, hey, I'm still a hot mess for other reasons. And and things are not perfect, but like, you are going to make it through the storm. And then there's probably going to be another storm. But I wanted to be like, by the way, remember when I was crying about this thing? Like, we made it. We're good. So just wanted to give you a visual that you can make it too. Because it might impact no one, but worst case, it'll impact one person. And that's worth it.
Yeah. It's also, I don't know if you realize you're doing this, but you're also teaching other people how to hold space for someone's pain and not having a little saying to say to them to make them feel better, not saying deepest condolences. Like sometimes you just need to sit with people in their pain. Is it uncomfortable? 1000%. But thinking that you have the right words to say, that you have the right poem or the right picture to share, just don't do any of that. Just sit there with someone. Just sit in it and sit in that uncomfortableness. Like as humans, especially if it's someone we don't know very well, oh no, we need to move on. We need to move on from this moment. And just like everything you shared right now, I'm like, this is it. This is the human connection. Being able to just sit in the uncomfortableness of grief and pain and trauma, and being able to allow someone to share that, because it is how you can't get to that full circle moment if someone can't hold space for you at where you are at any moment. So it's just, oh my gosh, this is beautiful.
I hadn't thought about that.
I didn't know we were going to go this way. I'm loving all of this. Oh, wow.
I haven't thought about that, but it's true. Yeah.
Yeah. Just thank you for sharing. I mean, I just want to thank you for your vulnerability, because it's beautiful and it's blessing me right now. And I just, thank you.
Always.
For that.
See, this is why it's important to make friends. You can have like a virtual group hug.
I know.
Yes.
Well, we had another thing on here that I wanted to talk to you about because we even got to see him pre-show, Bill Will,
Yes.
as you lovingly refer
Bill.
to him. Like, I love seeing your husband in your content, and you can tell he's just a supporter of like all the things
Yes.
that you do. So can you talk a little bit about that relationship of being like a content creator doing this thing that really there's no playbook for, and how he supports you, and just like what that has meant to you
Yeah.
and your
Oh my
business?
gosh. I am so lucky. I really am. I think there are probably a lot of things that people would say like to find the right partner or whatever. And I think I was very, very blessed that Will is an incredible person and that his mom just raised like truly an incredible man. So there are so many things, I will say this over and over again, where I'm like, did I scam this man into being my partner? Like that I cannot possibly be so good that I deserve any of this. Like, he is just really truly incredible through all the ins and outs of my life. Prior to content, he's been just my like light in a lot of ways. As a content creator though, it's funny because, and this is, that male audacity in a lot of ways, I will think, I should, you know what, that would be really nice to work with his company. And he's like, let's call him. Let's go. Let's find an email, he'd sit at the table and be like, hey, it's very obvious you all should work with my wife, right? Like he's the person who oftentimes when I'm dreaming something, he's like, no, let's go do the thing. Like you can do that. And he's been right. I hate that part where, there's been companies that I'm like, yeah, but they'd never work with me. And then they're in my inbox and I'm like, I wish I would have, believed you the first time. Um, it's a really interesting dynamic because Will is definitely a contributor to the business, right? In both in business ways, where when we're talking about how we budget things out, what equipment I should invest in, he's definitely my business partner. And then there's the other aspect of it where it's if I have a big project I'm working on, he's also my partner in making sure that the meals are covered for the week. And he's the person in the kitchen, or he's the person taking my car to get the oil change before I'm taking a trip to, whatever. So we're very much partners in life and in business. And we've also had to really draw a line about, are we going out and having a conversation about business because that's what we need to focus on? But
Yeah.
have we checked in with like, how are you doing? And
Mm.
I'm usually at fault of not doing that. So I try my best to be better at it. Here and then he will pop into my content just because I literally need help lifting something, or because we're crafting our home. So I have to consider what is the comfort level for him as far as a project. But both of us are also very much on the same page of making sure that this continues to be my creative outlet and a thing that, I can kind of be the driving force behind, because I'm sure you all have seen this too. We experience a lot of people going, we know your husband did that. We know that he's the one. We know that you've never held a power tool in your life, even though I have 90 minutes of me working this circular saw, right? So he also has seen that. And he's like, what is going on with these people online that just like do not believe you? And so he's fine with being outside of the spotlight so that this can be my thing and so that I can continue kind of being the face of this fun hobby turned career.
Yeah.
And I'm so grateful for that, because I'm glad that it doesn't shake his masculinity to have people question it, and it also doesn't inflate his ego to have others think that I can't possibly exist without him. So it's a good balance, and it's always changing year to year. We're always having to check in. But I like that he doesn't see it as strategically as I do. He just sees it as a fun thing. He'll listen to a song and go, you should make a video about this, and I need that fun, less analytical side. And he is that person when I need it.
I love that because he's not so in it that you're like, oh my gosh, we're working together, but he is invested enough that he's like, hey, do this or try this or whatever. And it's like someone to just share that load, because there is a
Yeah.
huge load when you're creating content and your whole brand is wrapped around your face and what you do, and everyone's critiquing all the things that you do. Just
Yeah.
to be able to share that load with another human is just so helpful in this space, I think.
Yeah, and he's also, although both of us are like, there's no specific breadwinner in our family, he also has a more traditional job still. And so just like for my own like comfort, it is nice to know that there is someone who like his schedule is not as crazy as mine. He has a more definitive day to day. And so again, it helps balance some of the craziness of our household. When I have no chill and could go tear down a wall at 2 a.m, he needs to be like,
I need to go to bed.
yeah. He's like, yeah, no, people don't do that on a Monday night. So let's pull it back a little bit. So it's nice to have
reason.
that. Yes.
Oh my
Yes.
That's awesome. Well, I have a couple of like partnerships that I've seen you do that I want to talk about.
Yeah.
Before we jump into those, do you mind sharing like your income breakdown? I know you do a lot of partnerships. Is that your main source of income, being a content creator?
So I should also mention, I have only been full-time as a content creator for a year exactly now. So
Okay.
I was doing, before this full year, I think it's literally exactly a year today. I had my full-time job in the tech world, and then I was doing partnerships. At this, and between, let's say the last year and a half, if we looked at like probably the first 9 months of me doing this full-time, most of my income was actually, it was kind of an even split between UGC content. So content that I was selling out to,
awesome.
Ooh.
yeah, and that was like kind of unintentional. It was UGC, it was consulting. So when I was speaking, when events would hire me to teach classes or to attend events or to teach seminars or things like that. So it was marketing consulting on all things content creation and brand partnerships. And all three of those were pretty equally, like they would float here and there. There was no affiliate to anything. At this point, I would say that as of probably the last month or so, brand sponsors have kind of jumped to the first of those three. And the next one is consulting and kind of the freelance marketing stuff on all things content.
Awesome.
Yeah, that consulting and UGC are kind of like they do this. But right now, brand sponsorships have kind of taken the lead.
Okay, perfect. Well, my
Yeah.
favorite brand partnership that I've saw you do, and we talked about this when we were in New York together, is your Google one.
Yeah.
You did
my
a Google partnership where you were showing the app, and it was like the smartest piece of content. And not only the smartest piece of content, I actually use it all the time now. So you showed how you can take the Google app, take a picture of something, tap on it, like say, oh, I bought this vase 2 years ago. Where did I buy it from? And how can I share it with my audience, or how can you get this vase? Or say you're just out somewhere and you like want to get that vase. You just tap on it. You showed me how to do it. You taught me how to do it. And then Google will just pull up anywhere I can buy a vase, maybe that exact vase or one that looks like it. And I was just like mind blown. Watch the whole content, saved it, use it over and over again. So A, kudos to like how you came up with that content. So I'd love that story. And B, how in the world did you get paired up with Google?
I know. I've made it a point to ask every time I have a partnership to ask them how they found me. And they don't always like to tell me. And I'm like, why? Like who's getting paid for this? I don't know why. And so I asked, and I actually was on the phone with one of their team members, and I just was like, of all people, I need you to tell me how you all found me, because this feels like a dream. Like this just feels like a dream. And I said, and she wouldn't tell me, but she was like, I'm not really sure, but someone did mention your name or something like that. And so I thought to myself, there are some stuff that just like comes across by luck. Like it could totally be luck. I make it a point to add myself to any marketing list. Oh, sorry guys. To add myself to any marketing list, email, newsletter. Like I want to be in people's business. I want them to see my name over and over again, just in case. But I also, if there is a person out there, if you are listening and you were the person who threw my name into the ring when it came to that campaign, I would just want to say thank you, because when I saw the list of people that they were working with, it just didn't make sense to me why I would have been a contender. Like our following size was different. Just everything was so different. I just didn't understand why they would have picked me. And so I'm like, but I also have to practice being like, yeah, you're cool enough. You got in,
You are cool enough.
So I was,
to me,
super stoked.
It just seems like either somebody who works at Google is following you and is just like a fan of your content. Like,
yeah, that's
who
true.
knows? But that almost makes it even cooler that they just dropped in your inbox and were like, hey, do you want to work on this? Because somebody at Google was like, we need this girl in this campaign.
Yeah, you know what? I never thought about that. And now I'm thinking like, I do have friends in the industry that I'm like, do you know anyone? Like, how did this happen? So I may have to
You're
reach
like,
out.
I still want to know.
Yes. Yeah. But it was so cool. I mean, it's literally, you use it every day. So it was one of those things where I'm like, oh, this is a dream, you know? Meanwhile, I'm just like, sometimes I'm like hoping and praying someone will give me a penny for my idea. And then you get to work with a brand like this, and it does validate that you have the caliber that it takes to work with these companies. But let me tell you, like you said earlier, 2 days later, I'm like, no one loves me, even though I just worked with Google, you know?
Google.
Yeah, so I have to remember to remind myself that I'm Google worthy on the days when your inbox is dry and things are not working out, you know? So it's definitely, it's a whole I'm sure someone's studying influencers and content creators right now, but it's really interesting. But I still am very, that's one of the things I'm gonna like print and leave for like my family members to look back on 1,000 years later, that I got to work with Google.
Well, and this is what I want to encourage people in, because everyone is always hanging their hat on that follower number, and it does not mean anything. I mean, it gets
Nothing.
my foot in the door a lot. I'm not going to lie. But if my content is not good, if my content doesn't perform, if my audience isn't engaged, like, you have, what do you have on your IG? Like 30,000? Is that right?
Yep.
Like,
And I was I was gonna say I had under 5,000. Well, no, with Google I had less, like maybe 10,000 less. I want to see it at this point, but I was signing at least 4-figure deals before I reached 5,000 followers. And
see,
so
this is amazing.
yeah, and that's why I tell people, like, listen, that's why I don't run the same race with creators who just, you know, are not walking in my shoes. It's fine. They're on a different path, because I know, just because I have the odds against me sometimes, just because I don't have the following size, I'm still making a living doing it. People are still looking, like, I'm going to throw a little bit of shade. People are still in my inbox asking me for the secret, but on the face of TV shows or magazines, or like selling how to get things done. And so I'm like, listen, you don't have to have all of that to be successful. Like, don't let anyone tell you otherwise. It's not true. I'm the perfect example of it. You would not think I'm like a, you know, million follower person online. And I know that my business is succeeding in ways that people who have that are not. And I hope that success for them. I hope it for all of us. But the lie that you have to have certain amount to ask for a value is just like not true.
Yeah. And when people tell you that, because brands will tell you that you don't matter, and like you just have to not take that in. Just be like, okay, and on to the next. Dust your shoulders off.
What does Elise Meyer say? Like, I don't receive that. Yeah.
I don't receive that. Okay, so some of the other like cool things that I have seen you do. The first thing is, I know you worked with Pinterest. You teamed up with some of my other favorite creators to do a makeover for a teacher's lounge for the First Lady. So how did that all come about? It was an amazing like experience to watch. It was shared on one of the big morning shows, right?
Yeah, it was a huge deal. So, I mean, that is one of the sorry guys, I thought I had this on Do Not Disturb. Oh, it's my husband. That's why. That doesn't work.
You're like, I'm still going. This is like Joe Rogan experience. We're just going to go until we're out of things talking about, because I'm still loving it.
So what we were talking about, community, I'm telling you, like, that is where all the fun stuff is. So the Pinterest project started off with a friend, Marita does it, who, she was invited. She's a big Pinterest creator. She's worked with their team very closely on a lot of campaigns, and, you know, has provided her expertise to them as well. And she was invited on this top secret project, and was not even able to disclose to her friends what she was asking them to help with. And that's where people like Monica and I came in, and, you know, we're being asked like, hey, can you sign this thing for a project that I might need your help with? And both of us are like, just tell us. And she's like, no, I can't. Like I really can't. This is the one time I really can't, you know, they will know, kind of thing. And so it ended up being a project with the White House in collaboration with Pinterest to renovate this teacher's lounge. And we went in with very little information about the place the space that we were going to be working in, the exact details of the budget. So it wasn't so much about jumping in. I mean, obviously it was a huge deal to work with the First Lady and with Pinterest, but it was also just, you know, 4 friends looking at each other, Erin, Marita, Monica, and I, and being like, we cannot let this fail because
Oh, no.
we all need to make each other look really, really good right now.
Yeah.
And let me tell you, there's nothing like putting 4 DIYers in a room. Like, we will get stuff done. Well, I
Yeah.
could literally, Erin would put the saw down and I would pick it up. I would put a wallpaper and Monica would finish it off. Like, what was it? There was a word that we used. The synergy of the team
Yeah.
was incredible. And so not only, the focus for us in our heart was to make sure that our friend group looked really, really good. And then also for all of us to have been Latinx creators, making this happen with the White House was a huge deal. And to be doing it for a school in an underrepresented community that was actually a trauma-informed school that offers services to families in need. I did not think that I could cry like a baby at seeing a teacher be able to just take a break and relax in this space. And when I tell you, like, I just went home and cried because, again, you don't realize what impact your skill set can have. But for these teachers, it was giving them a space to just decompress when they needed a break from what they were dealing with on a regular basis. So it was pretty incredible. And I don't know where you go from there. Like, I keep saying maybe Beyonce will call us and we can work on her house next. Mm-hmm.
I mean, did you guys just have moments, especially like when, the White House team came in and when the morning show is there? Were you guys, after that was over, were you just like, how did this happen? Like, where?
It's so surreal.
Oh my gosh.
Like, you see it in the movies,
Forget
right?
about
Where
Google.
it's like, I know, right? I'm telling you, you see in the movies, people in their black suits and they're walking down, and then you actually have like a line of Secret Service, clearing the area, and you're like, how is this real life? Like, little old me, Secret Service knows who I am, So it was really surreal, and it felt like those moments where you're a kid and you meet a celebrity on the street and you're like, oh my God, like that's what it felt like. To be working with such legit, like, high profile people who probably know everything about you, yeah, it was really cool. It was really, really, really cool and really fulfilling too.
And I know after that, so I think for 2 years, have you gone to the White House and helped decorate for Christmas?
Yes. Yeah. So they have this program where when the holidays roll around, they open a volunteer list to people they try to capture, I think, at least one person from each state. And so they open it up to the public, anyone within the US. Oh my gosh. They open it up to anyone within the US. And we were invited back to participate in that program for the first year. And then for the second year, we applied and were able to go back as well. But it's a week or a few days of helping decorate the White House for the holidays. And again, it's this experience of you go in thinking like, this is going to be the most legit place in the world, like all of this. And it is, obviously, in a lot of ways, but it also, you connect with the employees, you connect with the other attendees who are there. And it's just this reminder that we are all, no matter what walk of life we come from, like, we're all in the same exact place. So some of the people who are near and dear to my heart are the kitchen staff, and how kind they were to us and how excited they were for us to be there, and how they kind of took Bill and I in as like their little, adoptive kids for the week. And it was just they were so happy to see other Latinos participating. And we've gotten to connect with such incredible, team members there who now have become lifelong friends. And again, it goes back to that representation of being like, how can I put myself in a room where I can provide a voice of someone with my background, or contribute somehow, leave a little piece of my legacy in this place. So I just got the chills because I think about my parents, I think about Will's grandmother, and in her late in life, she actually took her citizen test, and just remembering this little old woman studying for her citizen test and knowing that in the silliest way, we've left a little part of ourselves in this place that means a lot to her. It's just like, oh, it's just the best.
Wow.
Mm-hmm. It's so beautiful.
It is
so cool.
beautiful.
You have done some cool stuff.
Yes, you
I
have.
know.
I want to end cap it with, we got invited to the Better Homes and Gardens Stylemaker event. And we were sitting next to each other, and I'm just like looking at her and I'm like, how did we get in here? Like,
I
did they
know.
know?
I
Like,
tell you,
why
we're
did
just
they let us in?
scammers.
Like, we're sitting there with Nate Burgess and
I know.
Jeremiah. I'm like, what is going on?
And
With
we like don't
Tabitha
know.
Brown.
Yes,
Tabitha
we don't know
Brown
the
took us to
etiquette.
church, y'all. She changed my life. Like, her just message and
Yes.
where she's come from too, and all the things that she had to overcome, and to see like where her life is now and how she's encouraging other people and the ripple effect. I was like, okay, why am I here? I don't know.
Yeah.
We kept being like,
I'm telling you, we're sitting there, Meggie, like, we're like, woohoo! And then we're like, wait, do you woohoo at these things? Like, do you clap? We don't know.
Because there were a lot of people that were not woohooing.
Yes, we were woohooing and we committed to the
excited.
Yes. And I think it's like, I know we have to practice that reassurance that there's a reason we're in these spaces. But yeah, I feel very, very lucky. Like some of these experiences have just been so cool. And sometimes people will be like, how did you even do? And I'm like, why not me? Okay.
Why not me?
I'm very much
And I think we
legit.
both didn't you just DM them and say, hey, I'd love to come? Was that your story, or had you done something with them before?
No. If you are Better Homes and Gardens, you did not hear this, okay? But I'm telling you, I will annoy people. So I follow them, right? And I would comment on all their stuff. And I thought, I have a lot of bits that happen in my head. So I was like, I'm going to comment on all this stuff as if I have been invited. So I kept saying like, can't wait to see you all. This is going to be so fun. Ooh, like, can't wait, like packing my bag. And when I tell you, like, I just kept pretending like it's going to be awesome and pretending that I wanted them to feel like they had forgotten to invite me. But like somehow it got back to me. So when they did invite me, I'm like, oh my God, was this on purpose?
Worked.
Or maybe, yeah. So maybe we'll just keep doing that. Keep me on the list if if you're watching this. But yeah, sometimes you just have to be a little delusional about it.
I mean, I love that. I think that's similar story to how I just kept commenting, being like, this is so great. I love this. I would just love to come. And somehow I got invited, and I was there. I was like, I do not deserve to be here. We deserve to be here. We deserve to be here. I'm going to hold you to this, because I don't know if you remember me saying this, but when the editors were up there and they're like, this is how you pitch us and whatever, I'm like nudging you and I'm like, you need to do an ofrenda. You need to pitch them an ofrenda, because I've seen you do them before. And like, I've never seen that in Better Homes and Garden. And so you need to remember that, because you probably need to be pitching them now for that.
Right now. I will. Yes, I will. No, I completely agree. I think maybe my thing for the year is to just like ask. Like sometimes we forget we can just ask people for things. And so maybe I'll practice that. Be like, hey guys, I have an ofrenda. Yeah. That's what I'm going to do. Let me help you.
Oh my gosh, this has been the best conversation. This has been one of our longest conversations. And I think we'll probably have you back, because I would love to have you come back and just talk about UGC. And I would love to have you come back and talk about consulting and actually how you get yourself out there and how you book jobs for that, because that might be a future job for me.
Yeah.
Oh my God, we're gonna be back for those two subjects for sure. But this has just been a beautiful conversation.
Yes.
So much value. And since you're in the Cypress Room, we are gonna all share our favorite things now. This is our favorite segment where we love to share our favorite things. And it's one of the ways that you guys in the Cypress Room can support us through shopping our affiliate links at no extra charge to you.
Yes.
Shameless plug.
Yes. I love it.
Well, do you want to go first, Vanessa? Do you have your favorite thing?
My favorite thing is, I guess it's something you can find in store too, depending on where you live. I actually just order them on Amazon because it's just easy, and I have so many options that I don't have in store, is poppies. I love poppy drinks. Have you tried them?
Yeah.
They are
so
good. And it's just a night. I've never really enjoyed soda or like sweet drinks or anything like that, but that's just a perfect taste of like something that feels healthy, but is also really yummy. So I order their 12 packs, and it's just, my fridge is stocked. It makes me feel like I'm like straight out of a Cribs episode. So the poppies on Amazon are the best.
What are some good go-to flavors that you can recommend?
I like the ginger lime, just because it just feels like, I mean, it doesn't feel like a mojito, but
it sounds like a mojito.
It does.
It's good.
Like a Moscow Mule.
Yes, it's good. The ginger lime, and then surprisingly the cola flavor, which you would think like nothing will touch Coke, but it's actually really good. So those two I would say would be a good starting point.
Okay, nice.
I'm gonna have to try
Mhm.
those. We always have the orange and the strawberry lemon at our house
Ooh.
because my husband and my son love them. But ginger
nice.
lime sounds much more up my alley. So
That
Yes.
sounds very
I'm gonna have
summery.
to try that.
Yeah. Nice.
My favorite thing is my travel steamer that I got off Amazon. I hate ironing. I don't think I've ever ironed a piece of clothing in my whole life,
Mhm.
but I decided it was time to look a little more polished. So I ordered a travel steamer and I actually just keep it plugged in my closet so
Yeah,
that
and
I can
she-
fire it up
Smart.
at any
She
time.
actually has a full review on how to use it and what she likes about it on our Amazon storefront that you can go
Yes,
watch.
I've
Oh,
actually sold a few
nice.
that
She
way.
has sold a few on
Yeah.
site. Amazon.
Nice.
Yeah.
Yeah,
We need to
super
talk about
handy.
that sometime too. I love
I
all
know.
things
You
Amazon
need if you
reviews.
haven't watched Danny's podcast yet, you need to go check it out. But did you take Danny's class at Achieve? Because we
I
were also at
didn't.
Achieve together.
I didn't.
Okay.
I missed it. Hopefully I catch it
All
soon
right.
though.
We have a podcast. Go watch it. You can get caught up on it. So something that I sold on Amazon this week because it was on deal again. By the time this goes up, it's probably going to be off deal, so you probably missed out, but it's still worth it at full price. Is my Breville Barista Touch, my most shared item. I know I've shared it as a favorite thing before, but you know what? It deserves another
Yes,
shout
it
out
does.
because we are coming off of daylight savings at the time of recording this episode, and I am dying because I like to sleep. I normally don't get up until 6 or 7 o'clock, and them taking this hour away from me, I have been struggling big time. But the
Oh
thing
my
that always
gosh.
gets me out of bed is my flat white waiting for me at just the touch of a button from my Barista Touch. And it's a little bit fancier than their entry model, but it's all digital. It tells you exactly how to make it. It has a sensor that
cool.
froths the milk for you, so you don't have to learn how to froth the milk. It just does it automatically. It tells me when I need to clean it and take care of it. And I have had it for 3.5 years now. Have not had one issue with it. Still running perfectly. Haven't had to replace
need
any
that.
parts. So I am a full advocate for getting a Breville Barista Touch for yourself. I don't buy coffee out anymore. Yes, it is a large investment. Full price, it's around $1,000. But now that I don't have to get coffee at
I
Starbucks
know.
twice a week now, and the coffee is way better because you can find
Yeah.
a great roaster or support a local roaster and support a small business instead of giving your money to Starbucks. So
Yes.
that's my pitch.
Feels like a
girl
fancy
math.
treat.
It's actually
It is girl math.
Yeah.
I'm getting paid to drink my coffee.
Yes,
I
exactly.
I make lots of content around my Barista Touch. And I did one that was just like totally false just to see if I could get people's like reaction. I made up some stat like the average person spends $2,000 a year
Oh
on
my God.
Starbucks. And everybody's like, no, they don't.
Oh,
and I'm
I
like,
bet they do.
I'm like,
Really.
the Gen Z does. You guys just don't know. But I was like, when I
Yeah.
added up, I'm like, yeah, 2,000 is a little ridiculous. You have to be
Yeah.
buying a coffee and a sandwich like every day. They're probably not doing that.
Yeah.
Some people
that's so
might.
funny.
Not the average person though. So they came for me on that. I'm like, that's okay. I knew that. I was just trying to get people mad at me, I guess.
Yeah.
I just want to thank you so much,
Yes,
Vanessa,
thank
for being
you.
on here. You're such a light and an encourager. And like,
Mhm.
yeah, I don't think you're ever going to know the ripple effect of just everyone that you've touched and encouraged, not just like in this creator space, but in life and in
Mhm.
your
Aw.
vulnerability. And you're just super kind and we love you. And I can't wait to see you
Yes.
again in person, which I hope will be soon.
I cannot wait to see you in person. And I really hope that everyone who is listening takes advantage of those opportunities to like come out and be part of these conferences. Cause I love
Yeah.
meeting people. I would have never, ever guessed you were an introvert, Christina. I would
Oh,
have
I'm so
never
introverted.
guessed. But you know how to have a good time though. So I cannot
do
wait
know
to
how to have
see
a
you
good
both.
But on the way to have a good time, my body and my mind is like, don't go, don't go, don't go. I hope it gets canceled. I hope it gets canceled.
Yeah.
But once
Oh my
I'm
gosh.
there, I'm in. And Maggie knows. She can sense once I'm in and she'll just like dip out and go back
Yeah.
to the hotel room. And
I
I'm like,
love it. Yes.
She's an
I love-
extroverted introvert.
Yes, I'm telling you. No, we have a good time, so I can't wait to see you both in person. And I'm just glad that you're doing this. I'm glad that there is just like a very transparent conversation about all the ins and outs of this crazy world. Because I think there's room for everyone. I really do.
and it's really fun, you guys. It is really
Yes.
fun.
It
Yeah.
is. Well, so
Yes.
thanks for watching till the end. We love you. If you're still here, thank you so much. We will leave all Vanessa's handles and links to where you can find her and follow her in the description box below. And we'll be back again soon with another podcast for you. So we'll see you next time.